and disbursements are made from it to support and clothe the children. This is also one of the uncommon things to tell of the virtues of these lands. The instructions of boys in the Quran in all these eastern lands consist only of making them commit to memory. Writing they learn through the medium of poetry and other things. The book of Allah Ta'ala is thus kept undefiled from the markings and rubbings out of the boys' efforts. I mean, he's saying in Andalusia they didn't have this habit, but he was praising a quality that they would give the Quran by talqeen, shafawi, in order that the boys wouldn't write the Quran and then erase it. They didn't want to defile the book with erasure. It's so beautiful. And this is ta'zeem. وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. Those who exalt these standards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is from the taqwa in the hearts of the people. And they had great taqwa and ta'zeem for the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this goes on, it's a very beautiful, it will make you weep when you read it. You'll weep, because it's lost. These traditions are gone, So I think just in summary, we as people, and here in Toronto, there's something that we can do. And there's one thing we need to understand which is important, and it keeps the Muslims, and this is something that is borrowed from a corporate model, but I think it's very valid. وَالْحِكْمَةُ ضَالَّةُ الْمُؤْمِنِ. There's an idea of what's called a circle of concern and a circle of influence. The circle of concern is the greater circle. Like our concern is for the whole ummah. مَنْ لَا يَهْتَمْ بِأَمْرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فَلَيْسَ مِنْهُمْ أو أمر المسلمين. The one not concerned about the Muslims isn't from amongst them. So we concern ourselves with the Muslim. But where is our circle of influence? Where can we really have ta'thir? Now we can have ta'thir by making dua for the ummah. So the ta'thir extends beyond even what we have physical or monetary power to change. So we make dua for this ummah and the dua has an effect. But what about that physical effectiveness that we can have? We have to limit ourselves to our circles of influence, to recognize that each one of us has a limited da'ira to ta'thir, this circle of influence. And we have to benefit by recognizing where it extends to and then work within that circle. And part of one of the, I think, mechanisms of kufr now in this day and age is to exhaust all of the Muslim resources by scattering all of their work all over, to where there's no emphasis on at the local level. And the primary concern of a community is always at the local level, always. Zakat in most of the books of fiqh is to be given back to the same community that it was taken from. It's taken from the rich and it's given to the poor before it goes into a central collection. It only goes into the central collection when there's no one to collect zakat at the local level. So there should be a local concern, because if you increase your local infrastructure, then your sphere of influence increases. When people see the Muslims successful here, then Toronto becomes a model. And I've heard Toronto used as a model in other places, as a way of encouraging people to do things. I'm not making that up. I've heard things that are happening here being used as examples in other places. So if we strengthen our local communities, we need to create neighborhoods where Muslims our children can be raised as much as possible in that first model within a society fixture where they have a sense of Islam around them. So if we create Muslim neighborhoods where Muslims live in the houses together, buying houses in the same areas, and we literally create Muslim neighborhoods so that people pray Fajr together, they pray Isha together, they have the women and the children are in an environment that's conducive to their Islam. And the women have a huge responsibility. They have a huge responsibility, because you can't be frivolous people. You can't let shaitan just take your intellect, steal them away from you. No, you're beings endowed with intelligence and integrity just as much as the men are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not preferred in these things the men over the women. No. There were great women of scholarship in this ummah. And if you study some of the greatest universities, there's a whole college in Al-Azhar that was donated by a Muslim woman that still functions to this day. Fatima al-Fihriya, the great Muslim waliya from Fas, who donated the entire University of the Qarawiyyin, which has produced again and again ulama all over, that spread the message of Islam all over Africa, especially North Africa and Andalusia. We know the foundation of the Sankuri University, Jami'at Sankura in Timbuktu, was donated by a woman. Women had great concerns for education because it was their children that they were going to be putting into those institutions. And we have never had a great, and I said this before and I say it again, we have never had a great Muslim or Muslimah that didn't have a great mother behind them unless they were yatim. And then they had a great Murabbi or Murabbiya. And you read Ahmed Zarruq, his grandmother who raised him because he was an orphan. She used to hide food in his house when he grew up as a little boy. And he would say, I'm hungry. And she said, let's make dua and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if there's some, that He'll give us some food. And they would make dua. And then she said, let's look, maybe Allah put some in the house. And they would go look together. And then he said they would find it. And he would praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he would eat the food. And he said, I realized when I grew old and I had my intellect, she was inculcating in me tawakkul. She was teaching me how to trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the kind of women that we need, that are going to raise another generation. At al-Madrasa, in عددت شعبا طيبا طيب العراقي. The mother is the madrasa. She is the school. If you prepare her, you've prepared a deep people, a people of roots, a people of substance. And if she's ignored and belittled, then you've ignored and belittled your own ummah. So this is something we have to be aware of. The women have a great responsibility and a great challenge in this age. And we need to understand what our tradition is. And I'm not saying that we have to go back to some kind of madrasa model where there's nothing. No, there are beneficial things that have happened and occurred in this time. But things need to be put into perspective. And we need to realize, what are our goals? The goal of education has never been economic fulfillment in Islam. Because ar-rizq is the amr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. The one who has taqwa of Allah, Allah will give him a way out. وَيَرْزُقُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. And He will provide from him from where he is, has no, مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. It means where he didn't even expect it to come from. So there are people that study for years to be a doctor, and I know a man in California, he's from an Arab background. He studied for years to be a doctor. He hates medicine. And he told me he just did it because his father wanted him to do it. Now he's a businessman, he's very successful. And he's a very devout Muslim. So the point is, you don't know where Allah is going to provide you. And the truth is, this is an age in which nobody has any aman. There's no istiqrar anymore. And there never was in reality. It's an illusion, because like the Prophet said, Al-mawtu aqrabu ilaykum min shiraki na'alikum. Death is closer to you than the strap on your sandal. So no one has any, there's no aman. أَأَمَنْتُمْ مَنْ فِي السَّمَاءِ أَنْ يَخْسِفَ بِكُمُ الْأَرْضِ. Do you have any security in the earth that He won't just shake it up? So we have no security. Our security is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the mu'min is the one that يُؤَمِّنُ نَفْسَهُ مَعَ اللَّهِ. He's the one that his security, he places it with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah is also al-mu'min. That's a name of Allah. And if you're mu'min billah, Allah yu'amminuka min al-balaya wal-razaya wal-shar. So all of these things, we have to be really, start waking up. We're in a deep sleep, and we're in a crisis situation, and our crisis is one of knowledge. It always has been, it always will be. And I'm not talking about information, I'm talking about deep knowledge that is transformative by its nature, that changes people, that makes them better people, makes them people of ilm and amal. And this is where we have to go. We have to create institutions where Muslims can learn again. We need to bring life to our masajid with the Qur'an, with the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is all within the possibility of the human being, because we're an extraordinary creature, and Allah has endowed us with extraordinary gifts. And if we turn to Him, then Allah gives us a makhraj, a way out. And really, I don't have more to say. Inshallah, tomorrow I'm going to talk just about planting seeds. In other words, looking for, what more practical things that we can do. I mean, a lot of this, I'm just trying to just give us, an alternative perspective that's based on my own research into classical Islamic education, and also that I had the benefit of spending a short time in a traditional madrasa, so I actually could see, because in the Saharan desert, there's still madrasas that are functioning the way madrasas functioned 1,000 years ago.